Okay, so first of all, I want to give it a little explanation because some people will see this who have never seen this happen, seen me channeling or whatever. So, um, and I've got to tell you, I knew there weren't going to be many people, but the information that I was told was that it doesn't matter because the people who are going to be here in person need to hear this. It's going to be for them. But then the people who are going to hear it later, it'll happen in their lives that'll have all this make sense. So they gave me a message this morning that's going to be on the screen as I'm allowing things to come through, which I didn't know either that was going to happen. But they, after the message was published this morning on Any Advice for Today, I had to then take someone to the airport. And as I'm driving back, I heard very clearly, you're supposed to have that on the screen as you're doing the session. Now, I'm saying all of this because we each hear things we don't believe and we don't understand. And the entire point of today is to have more of you come back into this place where you understand why you're here. That was the entire purpose. And so I was supposed to talk about all this first because as you're seeing all of this, it will start to make sense because they revealed stuff to me this morning that I've been questioning for quite a while. And now it made sense, and it's going to make sense to everybody who is here and who will hear this later. So as usual, I am not going to be on screen as I'm allowing the information to come through, because what happens is I know that I'm connected most of the time. However, when I see people, it breaks the connection. It breaks my energetic connection a bit. That may change at some point in my future, but for right now, this is the way that it works best. But they also say it's better because they want this message to be on the screen as I'm doing this, because this came through this morning, but now it's going to make more sense that I don't know about yet, but it will make more sense as it all happens. Okay. So let me share this with you all. And then they also said there's another message they had me go back to, which was from a year ago. If those of you who may have been here before heard the last presentations, they kept saying, look how we're showing you things that happened a year ago, just so you get this idea that there's an order to your life, that there's something that is occurring in your life and in the world that is orderly. And that was the entire point of that. So let me share this. Each time you show up, we say to you, thank you for being here, and we have waited for you your entire lives. Now, we say that all the time, and it doesn't matter when you end up here, it is always the same. You are ending up in a place that you meant to experience on your evolutionary journey. And you're going to begin to understand that a bit more today, because most of you as humans do not understand that you have this intimate connection to all that is, everything that is occurring. But you weren't supposed to know all of that as you were doing it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have made sense to you. You would not have evolved. That's why you are here. What we are saying today is that each of you who are here, who are listening to us, who will read this later, or who will hear this video, you are here on a very important mission. And we're going to say that over and over again because it is absolutely true, and you're going to feel this. And most of you have known that your entire lives. You have felt this thing within you, whatever that might have been, that was meant to be expressed, that was meant to cause you to evolve, that you knew was going to make a difference, that you knew that you were this important part of the world, but you couldn't hold on to it. You couldn't believe it for very long. But now we're going to give you something, which is why you're here, which is why we brought you here. We're saying that purposely because we did it. You also have free will, so you didn't have to come. You did not have to be here. You did not have to listen, but you are doing it because you're always directed. You just don't know or understand your direction. And so what we've done is we've used Roger's entire life, his entire life, to bring him here so he could help you understand your journey, because what's going to happen as you accept that and as you do become to start to understand it, you are going to give that back to the rest of the world. And that's how your world changes. And you've done it forever. If you look at the message that we have on the screen, that came through this morning. We gave that to Roger this morning. He didn't know exactly why or how that was going to come about, but now he does, because the events that occurred later happened to reveal that to him. First of all, we must explain the reason that there are not many of you here is because Roger didn't want to do this. We kept telling him, do it, do it. He kept putting it on. He only planned it a couple of days ago. Even though we kept urging, we kept saying, no, this is the time you're supposed to do it. We're saying that because each of you have done that. You're waiting for that right time in your life where things are just going to be in the right alignment for you to do something. Well, guess what? It's here. This is why you're here now. This is why you are here during this particular restructuring. What we said to Roger this morning, we also led him back to a message that we gave in August of 2020, where we began speaking of the restructuring that many of you did not understand what we meant. And now you're seeing it. What is happening? You are being restructured internally, emotionally, spiritually, so that you can evolve to become the people you were meant to be. You don't understand that. But we're giving you things today, as we said in the message, 2 things we gave Roger this morning. We'll start with one of them. Yesterday was the anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, I Have a Dream. You all remember that, or you've heard it throughout your history, or have you studied it? Now, Roger had this intimate connection with that because he knew that that was a mentor for him. He knew that he was connected energetically for many different ways. And you can each tell by looking at him, maybe that would be likely because he is a Black person. That is the inhabitation he decided to have this time. So that means he's aligned to something there that he is figuring out that is going to help him move through his evolutionary journey, just as you each are. We are using Roger as the example, but yours is going to be different because it's intimately connected to who you are, to your soul, to your evolutionary journey, which is your soul, which is connected to all that is. You have been here many times before. You've done this over and over again, which is why, again, in the message, we say words that you guys will figure out, you interpret them later, but we said always. The reason we say always, because you're eternal beings. You've always been here. And now you're doing something that you know what you're doing. You just haven't been aware to embrace it and own it. But now we're going to give you more that will explain it. So when we had him see that it was the anniversary of that and it was the dream, then we gave him another memory. Because each of you, many of you who have been here before, if you've heard our other recordings, we've told you about the dream that Roger kept bringing up, that he didn't have any memory of what that was about. And he found this folder years ago that said August 2005. And then he wondered, well, why did we plan this day? Why did we say you have to do it on this day? Well, first of all, we knew what was happening. We can see your future, even though you pretend you can't. You can, but we can see that, so we were helping. And so what we said is, yesterday was Dr. Martin Luther King's anniversary of the dream. And we told you have this dream that you kept putting away. You kept putting it away and you tried to ignore it. Many of you here have done that. You've ignored the dream because you didn't think it was real. You didn't think you were the person to do it. You didn't think you had enough ability, power, whatever it might have been. And that's why you're here. See, you came to change that. You came to move to a new level of being. And when you accept who you are and why you're here, then you will do that. And we know that you need encouragement, which is why we're doing this. Roger needs tons of encouragement. He has needed it his entire life. So he understands the process. He understands your withhold. He understands your disbelief. He understands your doubt because he's done it his entire life. But because of that, he knows that now his mission is to help you come to know that, as we put in the message today. Then the other thing we said is he was driving back from his errand this morning, which we have something to say about that as well, which will help you each in a different way, which he didn't expect. But when he came back from the errand this morning, we told him to find another message, which was the restructuring that we began speaking of more than a year ago, but we'll just say that it was August because that was the one that he found this morning, which is the one that we want you each to hear, see, and really embody. So what we will do at the end of this session, we will show you that message, but we also want him to attach it to the replay that he sends out to everyone, because we want you to have that, because you'll understand the connectedness of your life. We mean that intentionally. The connectedness of your life. You each are that important, and you each meant to be here at this time because you knew it was the perfect time to uncover who you were. We said you knew. See, we used to say that to Roger all the time, and he said, no, I don't remember anything. I don't know what that is. And then it keeps coming up, just as it has for you. And we're saying that because we know each of you have felt this. You felt these inklings of something that you might have done or discovered or developed, but you doubted it. Well, now this is the time that you meant for it to flourish. You come into the earth at very specific times in your world time trajectory. This particular time is horrific for many of you. That's why we wanted to do this today, because we knew how you would be feeling. We knew what you would be experiencing. Now, the other part of this, we gave Roger this great surprise this morning because it's August, right? It's August today. And so what happened on this day? We've had him have the memory. It was Hurricane Katrina. It was Hurricane Katrina in August of 2005. That's when he wrote the dream. That's when he wrote the dream about being a leader. You see, just like you have that dream about being a leader in your field, in your life, in your industry, in whatever you're doing, in your family. You had that dream, but you kept putting it away, or you kept doubting it, or you kept thinking that's not real. I couldn't be that person. And we will tell you that every leader has had that doubt at some point. So we don't want you to have any judgment. Our whole entire point, and again, we say this, we use Roger's entire life to prove this point, your doubt is meaningless, because eventually you find out that your doubt was useless. It was just telling you lies, and you came here to break through from that. So then when he saw that it was August 2015, 2005, August 2005, now it's making sense. See, because that enlivened his humanity. That event was pivotal for many of you, because you saw things occurring in your world that you felt a little helpless about, but you couldn't change, just as you're experiencing now in certain places and in certain ways. However, it brought through. It awakened you to your humanity. It awakened you to your empathy. And it awakened you to your benevolent, loving selves, which each of you have, and you know that, but you haven't really embraced it fully. And that's also part of the evolutionary journey. You do it in increments, which is why we have laid this out in ways that you can look at years. See, the years are meaningless in terms of the universe, but you humans use them to measure your progress. That's what you're doing. You use your years to measure your progress. It gives you an orderly system to see this has occurred, and now this has occurred. And you're supposed to use that to then evolve the world, because see, you have events, you have situations, and then you learn from them. You gain wisdom, you gain information and knowledge, and then you start to utilize it, and then your world evolves. However, for hundreds and hundreds of years, you haven't been doing that, which is why we thought today would be a perfect day, because when you look at Katrina, when you look at Hurricane Katrina and you look at what's going on in your weather today, it is still happening because you haven't changed. It is still occurring because you haven't changed. You are controlling your weather. You are. It's not them out there, it's you. And we're saying this because we still need each of you to understand how powerful you are. We need each of you to know that you have the ability within you, when you get out of your way, when you start accepting who you are, that you could cause great change in this world that would be the world you want to see, which is why some time ago, we told you the world that you desire to see is not guaranteed, which is also the information we gave to Roger, which is why we made it urgent for him to do these talks. because you come into the world at different times. Many talks ago, we told you you would choose. We said that you will choose, and that's where you are right now. And the only choice you ever make is between love and fear. Now, let's explain that. You make that choice by deciding to be who you are. Now, who you are is different in different lifetimes. Whether you believe that or not, it is true. And if you try to believe that it's going to help you move through this period so much easier, and you will accomplish your goal, which is, again, what we said in the message that we gave you today. You had a goal, and your goal coming into the earth this time was to cause the world to evolve, because you were going to add your light and your spirit and your love and your humanity, and that was going to drown out all of the darkness. It wouldn't drown it out, but it would diminish it, because what happens as you go through this, every time your world, we're speaking of, as your world goes through this, which is why we said that in the beginning of the message, as your world moves through these processes, your civilization changes. So the only thing that survives out of your chaos is the love, is the growth, is the evolvement. That's what survives. However, most times you go through conflict, which looks like chaos, which is what it looks like right now. And you each are experiencing parts of that within yourself. You were supposed to. Now, to understand this, you have to own those parts of yourself that you've been denying, that you've been putting away. Now, we are speaking to those here and who will hear this later, because we know who you are, and who you are loving people. So you have to understand this from a whole different standpoint. As you come in, you will have very definite ideas, inclinations, beliefs, ideologies, and that's what you were supposed to do. And you were supposed to own them and embrace them fully and love them. Because then you could look at everyone else's and you could say, oh, I understand the beliefs that they have, and I really want them to accept it, because that's part of their evolutionary journey this time. That's part of what they were supposed to do. It is different than me, but it's purposeful, because it had to be here. I could not come to know who I am without the others. That's what we want you to all walk away with, is that idea. You could not know who you are without observing other people and making choices. But then what you do is you decide to own who you are. And we know why we're saying this and why we said we need you to shine more, because some of you have been withholding for a really long time, as Roger has, which is why he's brought you here. Because this is the time that you meant to awaken. This is the time you meant to own every aspect of who you are. And we'll tell you something else, because there's several people that we are speaking to very specifically, because we know who will see this later. And we're going to say that there were few who had these really challenging life experiences, challenging experiences that you could not explain, that you felt in some way that you were being punished, that you were being given something that was so horrible you couldn't understand it. That's not what happened. What happened was, before you decided to be born, you said, if I had these things, if I had these situations, these people, these circumstances, it would cause me to break free from my old limitations, some of which I have known in this life, some of which I don't remember, some of which I know are ancestral. But regardless, I know that I accepted all of that to be here to move through them. And as I do, my life in this experience, in this here and now, in this lifetime, becomes so much better. But then what happens, and some of you know this, you don't have to experience that again. Once you move through it now, your other lives become so much better, so much easier, just as your world does. You each have been guided to doing something a little bit different, or to look at something within the last year, 2 years. It's been there, and it's been coming up so much because this is the time You decided to have it awaken. We want to really want you to understand this. This particular period, as we've been speaking of, this restructuring was one that you planned. And we're speaking to each of you. We really want you to get this. It's about you. It's not about the other people in the room. Who else is going to hear it? Not about your family. It's about you. You have this individual evolutionary journey. It's different than your spouse. It's different than your children, your parents. It's different than all of them, which is why months ago we began talking about your personal DNA. We love that term, your personal DNA, because if you understand that your soul has this journey that it is moving through, and you use your lifetimes to accomplish that, you start to understand some of the things that you have right now. We're giving you some information that we're going to continue to explain over the next several weeks. We told Roger to do this on Sundays through September. We're leaving it there because there's something that's going to change, and he will make a different decision, but we're leaving it there. But this next period of time is going to be particularly stressful. And so what we asked him to do is to do these talks, and we asked more of you to invite others, share this video with others so that there is a greater sense of calm, because you will need that. You will absolutely need that. We give you things not to cause fear, but to cause comfort, which is why we call these talks Comfort for Your Soul, because you're going to look at your world and we give you heads up, so to speak, so that you can start to become prepared, which is why we said also, we gave you the message years ago, you were being prepared. Each of you in your individual lives have been being prepared for what you are to do now. That's always the case. There are no exceptions to that. You were being prepared with everything that you did before so that you could become the person you meant to be, and you chose this time to allow that to come through. And you may not accept that. See, we're saying that because you have to understand Roger's example as well. See, in 2005, when he had the dream, that's the one he said, no, it didn't happen, just like you did. No, it didn't happen. Let me forget it. Let me forget what I said I was supposed to do. Let me forget that I thought I was going to be important. Let me forget that I thought I was going to be meaningful or achieve something. Let me forget all of that. Each of you have done that to a certain degree. And we're saying that because there's no one here who has more ability to do anything than you. There's no one on the planet who holds more ability to do anything. No one. It's just that yours has been very different. And because it was different, you didn't trust it. You thought it was strange and you don't want to tell other people about it, and you couldn't own it yourself. So what are you supposed to do with all of that? You're supposed to listen to us. That's what's happening. And there is a system. That's why many of you come, because you know you're going to hear something that's going to keep you on your journey. Roger does it all the time. He's had to do it. He's done it for years and years and years because his resistance has been so strong, which is why we continue to talk about it, because it doesn't matter to him anymore. When you let go of your judgment, your self-judgment, you will be amazed at how things start to change in your life and how you will achieve that goal that you came here to do. Each of you in your own way decided to have this life experience so that you could move through some limitation. And you're doing it all the time. You're doing it continuously. And sometimes your particular way of accomplishing that might have been really horrible and difficult and challenging. But once you understand it, it changes. It changes. We will say to you, if many of you who have followed us for a while or who have been clients of Roger, you know his passion, where he looks at you and he sees things that you don't believe and he keeps staying on it. It's because he knows. And he has known it for so long, but he denied it. That's why he keeps talking about that. Because once you understand that part of your process in evolving is questioning, it has to be. If you didn't ask any questions, as we've continually told you, if you did not ask any questions, you wouldn't receive the answers. And some of you have not been wanting to ask the questions at all, which is, again, another thing that Roger did. When we first started coming through, we will tell you this one. When we first started coming through, and we're saying this because this is the period that you're each are in right now. When we first started coming through, he was afraid of it. He actually didn't trust it. And so then he thought, okay, let me control it. Because see, that's that unknown that each of you are a little afraid of moving into, that unknown experience, which is where your world is right now. You're all frightened because of the unknown. So because of that, in the very beginning, he would ask us very specific questions. Very specific questions, until one day we said, how are you going to receive anything if you're not willing to be open? If you're not willing to receive whatever is there, instead of trying to control it? Because each of you have been trying to control your lives and hold it in place, and that's been the difficulty. Because you don't allow the free flow of information and wisdom that is available to you to come through, because you're staying stuck in some place that you intended to move beyond. There would be no other reason for you to be on the earth unless that were true. But what we want you to understand, and this is why we're going to keep doing these, because we're going to keep pounding it into your heads. You decided to be here now because this was a big change. This was a big change that you're going through. Several talks ago, we made a joke about Florida. We said, go buy land in Florida. We keep bringing it up. Again, what we're doing is showing you how you take some time to understand what you're doing to yourselves and to your world. What is occurring now in certain places in the United States? We started talking about the United States when we first started talking about your restructuring, because we said the United States would lead the way, which none of you understand, and that is what is occurring. But it takes time for you to see the results of that. So we said this many, many months ago about Florida, and then today, what you will see is that they're having a lot of trouble, and also with their children. You're seeing children now getting ill. See, that's when you pay attention. That's when you pay attention. And if you haven't noticed, in the United States, and everywhere it's different, but in the United States, because that's where we're speaking from now, but in the United States, all of a sudden, people started going and getting vaccinated. Why? It awakened something within you. We're not speaking of this as a means of whether you should, or the vaccine is right or wrong. None of that matters. But what it does mean is that the purpose of this entire event, which we told Roger when it started, the purpose of it was for you to come together. It was for you to come together. This is what happens with every restructuring your civilization has moved through. You go through wars and fights and all sorts of things until you come to love. See, because the love is the only thing that prospers and the only thing that grows. But in each iteration of your life, you take a position, which is why we told you you will choose. Now, Roger's very clear, and we're going to give you this because we want you to understand it. He's very clear in this country what political affiliation he would have, because there are certain things that are very important to him in this iteration, in this life, in this form that he decided to live now, which is humanity, which is about inclusion, which is about acceptance. And so there are certain people, and he, as we said, we brought it up this today, why he was so had this affinity for Dr. Martin Luther King. That's not a miss. You can't miss that information. It's right there. But then there were so many others, and you each have that. You're finding places that you're ending up in your lives now that are reminding you of your orientation, of what you meant to bring into the world. But the other part of this, and this is the part that each of you are having trouble with, in a certain degree, because you think that because you have your beliefs that you have to beat everyone else up to get them to accept it. And that's not why you came here. It's not what you're doing. You came here to accept yours, and in accepting yours, knowing that there's this grand scheme that's going on in your universe that is causing each of you to come together in conflict to resolve it. That's what you're doing. You're coming together in conflict so you can resolve it. You're doing that now within yourself. We're going to take this back And again, as we said, these next several weeks, we're going to keep explaining this because there's certain parts that you have difficulty accepting, and which is all only about your belief in your significance. That's all. And that's purposeful, because every evolution, you do that. You evolve more and you accept more, and that causes your world to become quite different. So years ago, in preparation again for this event today, we're saying all of these things. This is why we use dates, because each of you don't understand that there's this connection that happens, and it does not happen in linear time. It does not happen in the years that you think it's supposed to happen, and it doesn't happen in your life in that way. That's why some of you get so upset, because you think you make these distinctions. At this age, I should do this and I should do that. None of you meant to do that. You came to break all free from all that. That's what restructuring is. And which we told Roger, he's entering a whole new phase of his life at 70. We keep talking about it because some of you think that at a certain age, you should have found everything and you should have done it. And again, that's because you don't understand that you're eternal beings and you're working on a journey, an evolutionary journey that is always going on. And you understand it at different points in your life where you can assimilate it, where you can use it. And this is one of those points, and we're going to keep saying it because each of you are hearing something that is reminding you of something you kind of put away, or something you didn't quite believe in, or something you thought didn't make sense. We gave Roger so many. This morning, this is a fun one. We'll give you this, and then we're going to go back to Afghanistan because we talked about that a little bit. So this morning, he got up. He was getting out of his bed, and there was a glass of water sitting on his night table. And he's asleep. He's not paying attention, and his arm hit the bottle, hit the glass, and it just flew. But the funny thing was, and we wanted him to see it, we pointed it out. The water flew up, and the glass fell down, didn't break. It fell straight up with water in it. That's what your world is doing. That's what is occurring now. We love giving him these little examples and metaphors and analogies and all of that, because then you can kind of make sense of it. That is exactly what happened. Then we gave him another one the other night. We're giving you this one. You think things are happening accidentally, and they're not. We spoke about this in one of our messages. He was watching a television show, and we're saying this because what's going to happen as we're saying it, each of you are going to start to see these things in your life. You call them coincidences or synchronicities, and they are that, but they are meant to tell you that you're on your path, that you're moving in the right direction. That's what it is. But you think that they're all accidental. But now as we're saying this, you're going to start to see them, and you're going to start doing what we call connecting the dots. So he's watching television, and he's about to switch off the TV, and he saw this pianist there. And he thought, wow, this guy is really great. Who is this? He never heard of this person before, but he appreciated the artistry. And so he went to look to see who this was. And when he went to YouTube to find this person, he said, oh, wow, he has a lot of albums there. He has a lot of music there. Let me listen to one. He went and he looked at one and he said, oh, that looks interesting. Oh, but let me play this one. Let me play this one. So he went to that video and he pressed the play button. And as he's doing it, the television was still on and the exact same song was playing. Almost in sync, almost at the same time. And he was just shocked at that moment. Why is this happening? He didn't even know what's he seeing? And the only way that he knew that this had happened is because the clothing that the pianist was wearing was different on the TV than what it was in the video. And we said, this was just to show you that you're always in the right place. And when you start paying attention, you will notice that. And this is what we're saying to each of you. You are always in the right place. And there are certain things that we are going to give you that we can give you now because Roger has seen it. And that's what each of you will do as well. You will come to this place of understanding in your life of what your particular mission, we're going to keep saying that because you have one, and more people here who are hearing this and who will hear it later will understand exactly what that means. You knew that you had something you were supposed to do, but you couldn't quite get to it. But we're saying that this was the time. And again, it had nothing to do with your linear time. It has nothing to do with your age, any of that. So when we took you, we talked about Afghanistan, for instance, because that just recently occurred in your world, but it has not. It has been going on forever. It has been going on for centuries. It has been going on for eons, actually, longer than any of you can remember. So to get Roger to start to accept this concept, we will say that we give him information that he hasn't interpreted yet, and that's because he can't accept it all. So he knows it's there, but we tell him, don't go there. Don't go there yet, because we're going to give you more that's going to actually end up making sense. So where we started was we took him back to studying history, where you can see the patterns that you each are continuing to repeat. And when it goes on too long, when your world and you get out of balance, you need correction, which some of you call a reckoning, which is what's happening in your world. It's a reckoning, but you're here because you wanted to do it. You're here. It's not accidental that you're on the earth at this time, because you wanted to participate. You wanted to help. And that is what you're doing. So when you look at what is occurring in Afghanistan, and if you study the history, you'll see it's been going on for centuries, as we said. And then we took him back to biblical times to understand even some of the earlier origins of this. As humans, when you don't know who you are, you don't know your power, you will try to get it from other people, and you will use it in any way, shape, or form that you can. And then you are your governments, as we have said before. So your governments then take on that persona, and they are trying to control what is happening because it keeps them in power. And when we say they, we are speaking of you, because you have free will again. And so if you don't like what you see going on in your governments, then you can do something. You can change it, because you could be the person who gets elected to make the change. You could be that powerful, if that were in your particular personal DNA for this lifetime. It may not be. But you will find these proclivities, let's say, that will align you to who you are. Each of you has something very specific that you're meant to do. And it is related to your life. It is directly related to your life. You cannot live your purpose outside of your life. We're saying that intentionally, because you think you don't have a life purpose, but you do, and you came in with it. We've recently told Roger we want you to start talking about soul's purpose, because it might be easier for some of you to accept then that this purpose that you don't quite understand, it is there, it's built in. Everybody has it. There's no person, no soul that is ever born without that. Oh, we wanted to go back because there is, some of you have lost people. And we'll tell you this, we brought this up today because the reason Roger had to go to the airport today is because his friend, his uncle died. And so he had to leave town right away to get to his place for the funeral. Last night, Roger said, before all of this occurred, Roger said, okay, I need him to go away now because I'm too busy. I need him to go away because I got to get stuff done. I have all these things I need to get done. And so then he gets a phone call. After he made this statement, he gets a phone call saying, well, yeah, he's going away now because his uncle died. And Roger said, oh, did I kill him? See, he's had that thought before too. So have you. You think that something you might do is going to cause the death or harm to another. You do not have that power. You do not have that power. Everyone comes into the world and they will plan when they're going to leave. You have no control over that. When a person decides to leave their physical body, it's because they have completed that particular portion of their evolutionary journey this time. And they're ready to go. And their leaving, their absence, their exit then causes you each to feel something or experience something. Sometimes you will have these young people who leave very young, which is why we talked about kids in Florida again. You see, because then it awakens you to that empathy. There's something about that that you remember that child that was within you that you did not nurture, that you did not love, that you did not bring forth. And so when you see it happening to others, it awakens that. And so these kids came into the world and they agreed to leave. They agreed to die. We want you to understand that. They have souls. You think that your children don't have souls, and they do. They're on their journey just like you are. You just use them. You just use them to help you understand you. That's all that's happening. But they have their individual journeys. And if they decide to die, it's meant to cause something within you to fill out. You're completing some portion of your evolutionary journey. We can't tell you specifically what that is, but it's always the case. This is a difficult thing for many of you to understand. But Roger went through, we talked about this because he felt that at the time that he guided both of his parents through their death process, which involved giving them morphine, you see. And he questioned, did I kill them? Some of you have done that, and you walk around with that grief and that feeling. We're saying this because we know some of you have done that, and you feel that you might have been responsible. You are never responsible for the death of another unless you actively take something and kill them. Other than that, they have their own free will and they decide to leave when it is that time. We're saying this as well because there's a tremendous amount of grief going on for the people that were killed in Afghanistan recently and the soldiers, but we want to say that they knew what they were up to. And that's never easy for anyone to hear. You don't understand that, but it is absolutely true. They knew it was part of their journey at that time, that they had completed something, but they also knew that their exit at the time that they did it would cause all of you to see something else, would cause each of you to act in a new way. And then you do it collectively, you see. You will look at certain countries. This is why there's outrage going on now, because you'll look at certain countries and you'll say, wow, why is that happening? Let's do something. And then you form coalitions to go out and start changing things. But it's changing. You just can't see it. The reason we are saying this is because we gave Roger information that many of you will not understand at this point, but you will later, and depending on how long you allow your physical body to stay informed, you'll see it. But your president in the United States did some things that everyone was like really upset about. Thinking this is terrible, it's going to ruin everything, everything's going to happen. And we said to Roger, no, that's not going to be the case. That's not going to be the case. You each will see that this is going to turn out in a way that's going to cause your world to heal. It's going to cause your world to heal in a different way. It always looks crazy as it's happening, and then the result is an evolved world. You've done this over and over again. If you go to our messages, and we love having you do this, because you will surprise yourself, actually, because you're being directed. We're not doing it. You're going to direct yourself to read something that's going to resonate so much for you, that's going to, again, awaken you to your right place in this world at this time. And so the other day, we told Roger to go back and look up the word chaos. You see, because he's lived through it so many times, so he knows what happens. And we're talking about in this life, but he's having memories of lives before. He's had those memories of life before. We took him back one time to ancient times in England, which he knew he had roots there, but now he started to see it in a whole different way. But you each have that. And so what is happening now, you're moving through some portion, some part of your evolutionary journey that is going to cause your world to become better. We're going to use subjective words, human words, but we will say that because it's the only way you can understand it, but it's going to cause your world to become better. And the only way that occurs is when you become better. And the only way that occurs is when you refuse to judge yourself, when you give up self-judgment. Now, we know that's a big challenge, because your entire life was meant to do that, was to cause you to get out of the way so that you could uncover and really recognize who you are and begin to own that. That's all that is ever happening for any of you. There's no separation. There's no difference here. But the challenge that you each came in with now, and we're going to help you move through this, which is why we said we're going to keep moving these, doing these talks, because the challenge that you have now, you're going to look at things, and some of you have already done it. We felt it. We felt that you're really looking at things and you're angry and you want to tear things apart. You want it to all stop and you want it to all go away. But we want you to look at it differently. We want you to look at it as it's giving you an opportunity to finally become yourself. That's what's happening. Because there's no way that you can see, that you can observe your world and not find yourself. There's no way that you are able to accomplish that. But some of you have problems with that because of your judgment of others, or the fear of judgment. That's the main thing. In this past years, as we've talked about, many of you, especially in the United States, but it's gone on in every country if you haven't noticed. But every country has these divisions, these political divisions. You need to have those. Because you can't know who you are unless you have them. That's the part that's difficult for many of you. Saying, no, I believe this. No, I believe that. That's what you're supposed to do. But the other part of you, your higher self, your Wilhelms, will tell you, yes, that's what you're meant to do this time. But because you're an internal being, you may do it differently next time. You may decide that, oh, this time I need to come in and be a little dark. We don't believe that will happen in this particular. You won't have any memory or any idea of that, but we're just giving you an example that there are people who will be on that particular sphere or part of their journey where they came to bring a little conflict. They came to bring a little, contrast. We love that term. There was another guy that used that so much, and we love it. Contrast. We chose to use chaos through many of our writings. But it's just so you can see its differences. All differences that you experience in the world are meant to cause you to come back together to own who you are. That's all that is occurring now. And as you move through these next several weeks, these next several months in your life, you will see that that is beginning to happen. And because you heard this talk, you'll start to notice it. You'll start to become more aware of it. And then you're going to remember us saying to you that if you decide to go into hate, you've lost. You're not going to accomplish what you came to accomplish, you see, because you came to love yourself. It is not possible for you to get to that place of pure love with yourself by hating someone else, because there's a deeper part of you, your Wilhelms again, your higher self. That's why we're saying that. Your higher self knows that you are all connected. And so if you're going to hate someone else, you know you're hating yourself. And you are not going to love others until you come to love yourself. So there you have what you came to do. That's all that there is. We wish we could tell you there was something different than that, but it is not. You came here to now cause yourself, love yourself in a way that would cause you to blossom. And we love using that too, because that's what you need to think about yourself. There's this things that you each have, and it's become kind of popular in your society too, self-love. And you're trying to find that, and you think that is the most important thing, which in essence it is, but you haven't figured out how to get there. Which is, we keep giving you it in different ways. We will change terms and give you different, just changing around so you get the same information. But what we said, self-love, like authenticity, is just a lack of self-judgment. You don't judge yourself. You've had experiences that you think were terrible, horrible, you screwed up, you just did terrible things, and you can never be forgiven. That's never true either. It's just something you told yourself to keep hidden, to keep yourself in a prison, a self-imposed prison. These are the concepts that we gave Roger, 30, 40 years ago that now make sense. We had him write a missive the other day. It was this long thing. It was several weeks ago. We had him write this, and one day we might even get him to publish it. But what we said, which you each will understand, we told them, you've done this where you've been afraid of the judgments of others around you. So then what you do is you create this self-imposed prison. You create the self-imposed prison that you think is going to keep you safe, and it never does, because the other part of you knows that there's so much more that you have to give. There's so much more you have to offer. You have that little bit of spark of dream that maybe when you were a kid and had this idea that you were supposed to be someone, maybe that was true. We will tell you another thing. If you listen to this, go back and find the message that we gave you so long ago. And it's called, What If You Were Right? What if you were right? See, that's the question you're each asking. What if the thing I thought I was supposed to do, what if I were right? But now I'm about to leave my physical body, and I don't know, because I didn't try that out. I didn't go do that thing, whatever it was. So I don't know. And then I end up on my deathbed with that question, what if I were right? And what we're saying is that you decided to be here now, and why you're listening to us, and why you're going to hear this, those of you who will hear it later, why you're hearing it is because you wanted in remembrance. You wanted something that was going to awaken you to why you're here and awaken you to your importance. We're going to keep saying that one because we need more of you to be important. We need more of you to see that what you came to do is going to create a major shift in your world. Your world in centuries to come is going to be vastly different because you were here. We wish we could show you the crystal ball where you could see that, but we know that it's true. And then we will tell you the other one, because you have probable realities. Okay, you each live in a state of probable realities. You have that in your life individually, and then because you're creating your world, then you have it collectively. So your probable realities mean that you have these things that you're sitting in front of, and you say, is that possible? Is that probable? First of all, we'll say it wouldn't be in front of you unless you were supposed to ask that question. So then you'll sit and you're wondering your question. And then depending on where you are in your evolutionary journey, your self-doubt may be so strong that you can't get to believing that. But then you'll keep coming here, and little by little, we break you down. And little by little, you start to say, oh, wait a minute. I get it now. I've been judging myself for so long. I'm starting to understand what I have, and I'm seeing the results show up in my life because things are changing. Different people are coming about. All of that's going on. I get it now. Each of you will come to understand that. And we have nothing. We can't see your weakness. And we're saying this because, okay, we're going to explain this in a different way. Roger is quite aware that when he is speaking with us, which is why, again, we like doing these where he's not on camera, when he is speaking with us, his information is very clear. He knows what's going on. He knows what's coming through. And then he knows when he's not in that kind of deliberate connection, then his old stuff comes in. That's what we're calling his old stuff, just like for you. But that's why you're here. His anger comes through, his doubt, his fear. All of those things come through, not to the degree they did before. They don't nearly have the kind of effect that they did at one point in his life, which is the same for you. When you decide to say, okay, I'm just going to take this baby step and I'm going to start moving in this direction to own who I am. Now, we are saying that we want you to do more than that, because we are quite aware of where your world is going. We're quite aware of what is happening. And unless you make a change in yourself, you're going to continue Afghanistan for many more centuries. That's why we said the shift that just happened that everyone is judging right now is one that needed to occur. It's going to work itself out because you're dealing with something that you each are dealing with in your individual countries, where you will create separation. You create separation even among your own races, which is astonishing, but you do it. And you do that from a feeling of littleness. You do it from an individual feeling of littleness, and then you will, that collective energy moves into your world and moves into your governments, your countries, and then you see the world that you have now. But you can change all of this. The other reason we said this was that perfect day, now we said this a long time ago, but this was the day we wanted Roger to do it. He kept trying to deny it. That's why, again, he didn't just plant it a couple of days ago. We're saying that because those things that you have done that you kept putting off, this may be the time that you might start to want to do that. You might be motivated a lot more to go and now do that. And so he knew that this was important. He knew that he had to take advantage of this time. Otherwise, he would never break out of his restriction. He knew that this was meant. We gave him so many instances to see that it was, you couldn't mistake it. You could not mistake what was happening. And it's just become shocking at some point, which is why we gave you the message this morning. And then what we'll do at the end, as we said, we're going to give you the message we gave you more than about a year ago. Just about a year ago. Because we knew then, which is how each of you know what you're doing, but you somehow are not willing to take the responsibility only because you haven't built up the belief in yourself. That's all that's ever going on. And we need to say this because we need none of you to judge yourselves, especially at this time, because we need you. We need you to really step up into your loving, benevolent selves right now. So if you start to judge yourself for what you didn't do before, what you didn't know, or how you didn't awaken, none of that. It's just you don't need it right now. What you do need is this complete and utter acceptance of who you are. And every talk that we will do will be to help you come to understand that. We mentioned, no, we did not mention that because this happened later. It was about a week ago that Roger lost one of his YouTube channels. Now, he's had lots of losses, so we want to explain this because many of you are going through that, and there are people in the world who are going through that as well, and you've seen it. That's why we're saying we had this happen so he could appreciate what was happening in Afghanistan. We know that doesn't make sense to you, but it will, because when you can experience loss within yourself, you appreciate someone else's, and then you have empathy. And empathy always causes you to love yourself. And just that's what happens. Causes you felt it, causes you to love yourself. So Roger discovered that he had lost one of his YouTube channels that had tons of content in it. He had lots of videos. And he was distraught at first for a few minutes, we'll say. And everybody else is freaking out, saying, oh no, how could this happen to you? What's going to go on? And we told him, well, because you're different now. We did that because you need to start being a different person. You need to start building from here. Your physical possessions mean nothing to you in terms of your spirit and in terms of your evolvement. None of your physical stuff means anything in terms other than how you use it to fashion your evolvement. So Roger lost everything when he was 19 years old. So he's and over and over again since then. So he's had plenty of experience with it. So because of that, it causes him to understand you. It causes him to not see you in any other way, because he knows that even if you lost something, it's meant to build something better, to do something greater. That's why it's gone. But many of you are trying to stay where you were. See, that's been the problem. You're trying to stay where you were so evolvement doesn't happen if you think that you have to stay there. And sometimes things that get ripped away from you so that you get moved. No one's doing that to you, by the way. You're doing that. Your higher self is guiding you, because sometimes you just get too resistant. We've told Roger that for decades. He's gone through every kind of physical malady and problem and illness because his resistance was so strong. But now, because he understands that, it doesn't bother him. It doesn't pain him anymore, because he knows he can help more people. He can help you because he understands it. What we were saying before, and some of you don't get this, especially those who have worked with him personally, it is not possible for him to see your weakness. It's just not possible. He knows it's not there. He knows it's your resistance because he's lived it. And some of you, this may make sense to you now. When he's hounding away at you, It's because he knows what's there. And he also knows, as we're saying to each of you, he also knows that this is the time where it was meant to come about. It wasn't before. It wasn't when he was 12, when he first drowned. It wasn't then. That was part of it. That was a setup to lead to today. Everything led to today. We're saying that because we want each of you to understand that no matter when, those of you who may hear this video later, it's the same thing. Today. Whatever that today is in your experience, this will make sense to you because there's no difference. All humans are on that experience. You're in that experience right now. And it will be a beautiful one once you understand what is occurring. Now, we're saying this because, again, you're going to go through the next several weeks where you're going to look at more conflict, more difficulty, and we need you to understand and hold strong to your knowingness, because you each have it in different levels. You each have this knowingness that something is occurring that will eventually become better, that will eventually cause you to evolve as well as your world, because there's no separation there. And that's what you're each doing now. But you decided to be here now because this is big. And because it's big, you are big. See, that's what we want you to understand. You decided to be here because you wanted to make this greatest contribution to your civilization. We're calling it that because we need you to think beyond even these few hundred years that you might be able to witness. You each are here to make this difference, and we're going to keep pounding it into your heads, because when we do that, then Roger stays awake. He stays attentive because he hasn't done that as you haven't done it, but it's purposeful. We really want you to understand that, because you cannot go into judge. He has zero judgments about his past now. And I know that's hard for you to understand, but when you understand this, you will let go of that as well. And as we started to speak on one of our last talks, we said there's a religious thing that many of you have used called the peace of understanding. And that's what you're going to have, the peace of understanding. See, because when you come to understand why you chose the circumstances and the situations and the people and the challenges, all of them, when you come to understand why you did that, you will have peace. You will absolutely have peace, because you will have evolved. You will know that your soul, your eternal being, decided that this was the time, the best time in this physical incarnation for you to come through to accentuate and develop your greatness. We mean that, and it is your greatness. And we would like each of you, we're giving you references, and we do this all the time with Roger, which is why it surprises him so much. But we gave you a message called You Were Being Prepared. Each of you should go and read that one as well. And you will understand this period. Because that was many years ago, we gave him that one. And the other thing that we really want you to understand now, because it's going to be essential. We gave him patience. We gave you all patience many, many times. There's so many of our writings that we have given you because we need you to understand this, which is why we took him back to seeing studying the centuries, the ancestral history, because you don't change that quickly. So don't beat yourself up. You don't change quickly, and your world doesn't, because you are creating your world. But you're in an accelerated period right now, which is why you chose to be here. You have available energies that you could utilize to accelerate your life and cause the entire world to become much better and look the way you wanted it to. And the reason we chose today again, because we knew the storm that is happening today was going to happen. So now you could look at it, because you control your weather. You do, each of you. But you've been, again, out of balance for so long that you had to come to this place to cause a course correction so that you might start to become the person you intended to become. Every soul is doing that, and you're doing it collectively. And what happens as you have done that, your world comes out better. but you get distracted by what you're seeing in the midst of all of that. As it's occurring, you will get distracted, which is why we decided we are going to continue to do these talks, at least for this period, to help you. And what we did, we told Roger to create these talks, and we also said we wanted everyone to register, and even if they couldn't be here, we want to send them the replay. And then we also said, we told his assistant, we want you to create a playlist because we need these to be there because people will be able to go back and review these. And the information that we're giving you today, when you hear it later and you see the completeness of it, when you see the realness of it, when you see the truth of it, all of a sudden you start to know, oh, I was in the right place. And I always have been. My life is directed and guided in just such a brilliant way. And I'm so grateful for that. That's what you're going to say. And we're going to help you because we're not going to give up on that because we can't now because we've unleashed Roger. You see, because once you understand, you can't stop. When you know the magnificence that exists within other people, you just want to see it. And that is the calling some of you might have had. But we will say you did not have Roger's, you had yours. And we need you to understand that we are, again, just using him as the example. We want to make that very clear because what you're supposed to find is that thing within you and you know what it is. It's there and you held it, you doubted it. And so now what's going to happen over these next several weeks, that doubt is going to be chipped away little by little by little because you're going to feel as if you're being forced to uncover who you are. That's how it's going to feel, that you're being forced to just finally step into your power. But again, we're going to continue to help. As we said, we're not going to go on with this one. We're going to keep doing this because we have to give this to you in pieces, because there's certain things that are going to happen in your world in the next several couple weeks that it'll be better if we speak of those things at that time so that you can understand the coherence, the integrity, as we told Roger many years ago. When we first began, we said there is an integrity. I want each of you to understand that there's an integrity to your life experience. You just come to understand it later. And that integrity means that there's certain things laid out that you did. You said, okay, I want to evolve and I want to become this person. So if I go onto the earth and if I have these situations and these people and all of these things that are occurring, it's going to allow me to do that. And so that's what you each are experiencing now, and you're just figuring it out. And it takes you time to do that. And we're giving you examples, which is why we took you back to 2005, to Hurricane Katrina, to what is occurring today that you have maybe not corrected or made a course correction in your own life that would cause the effects of your world to be very different. And we're going to keep saying this because you're going to try to blame what's going on to everyone else, but it's always within you. It's always you. But when you do it together, it's so much better. We've also told Roger that we want him to do more groups because the groups are really serving this particular time in your world's history. There's a time that you're all going into where your collaborations are becoming much more powerful and important because that's why you're here. You came in to the world this time because you wanted to bring in more inclusion and acceptance in your own way, whatever that is. There's no other reason you would be here. Now we're saying here by listening to us. Other people who are not doing what you're doing would not hear this. They're not going to be attracted to this. You each, in whatever timeline you are on, whatever lifeline you are on, you are attracted to those things that will help that particular development. And each of you are on one now that is meant to cause a greater acceptance, love, inclusion in the world, and whatever area that is. It's not going to be the whole thing. It's not going to be all of it, but there's something in there within your experience that you have known that this is what you were supposed to do. But you may have doubted it, but now you're going to see, and we're going to help you. And it's going to be really quite wonderful that we're going to help you come to gently accept and cradle that baby. That's the image we wanted you to have. You see, that child that came into the world that was new and searching and wanted to know what was happening. Now you're starting to go, you're starting to remember, and you're going to start to cradle that baby, and you're going to love that child. And as that child begins to grow, you're going to nurture that child. And as you do that, your world becomes vastly different. And it becomes the world that you wanted to see, as we said in our earlier message. What we like to do now, see if there are any questions. You do have the ability to unmute yourself. And then at the end of that, when we're done with the questions, we do want you to read the one message. It's rather long, but we need you to hear it because we went to great lengths, as we said, and we plan these things out eons in advance. And we're not kidding with that one. We plan them so long ago for them to show up so they make an impact on you on the day that they do occur. However, we will invite any questions that any of you might have. There may be people who have not gotten into the room, and we will see that in a second. If there are no questions, if nothing else, if you have nothing,
can you
then
talk
that means
about the difficulty?
we are complete with what we have, except for having you read the message that we gave you a little more than a year ago, a couple of days, we believe. Because now, when you read it, and after what we've just said, Roger doesn't remember what it was, but he knows that we told him. When you read it now, it's going to make sense. We're doing all of these again, so you remember, for each of you. We're trying to implant in you the correctness of your life, and how divinely planned it was, and how you're always on track and you're always in the right place. And so we're going to have you see this now.
Mm-hmm.
And as you read it, which will take a moment, and we would like to have it on the screen so it is in the video recording, that would be the most helpful. So we will do that. And as you read it and as you see it and take in this recording, more and more is going to start to make sense in your life, because you are here for a very important reason and you decided to do it now. Doing is sharing. Oh, I'm sorry, somebody said something in the chat. Bad signal. A challenge to watch others going through things that we are. So yeah. Oh, great, perfect. I'll come back to this. Let me share this right now. I put the recording back on. This is good. Now, this is the one that I was told that you're supposed to read now, and we'll see what happens. And it is this one. It's rather long, so what I'm going to do is leave it on the screen, then I'll scroll down so that you get all of it. Okay. Whoa, okay. That's, I'm going to say, I was told not to read it, not beforehand. I just said, just find the message. That's the instructions that I have, and I listen now, and just to do it because it would be more impactful for me to see it. And it was, I had no idea. And then the things, the similarities that came through. Okay, bad signal, the challenge to watch others. Okay, good, I can't hear you. Okay. Oh, okay. The challenge to watch others going through things that we are so against and tried to help, but others are not hearing. Okay, wait a minute, go back. I'm sorry. Okay, but others are not hearing their journey, I guess. Yes. Well, that's the okay. Okay, let me talk about that one first, because what I've come to understand, and I get this because this was what was coming through in the message, is that we will see certain things and we will disagree with what the others are doing, but we have to understand we were supposed to do that too, because we couldn't come to know who we are. But then we have to remember the other part of that is we can't hate them for it, because then none of us have won. Nothing changes. So we have to understand that all that is contrast, giving us something to know, to compare ourselves to know who we are. That's basically what I get. But okay, so, and that's the piece of understanding again, understanding that people are just going to be on their different journeys, and then but that's purposeful because that helps us know who we are. So yeah, anyway, okay. And then the other one, or is it the most, it is the most challenging process. Unfortunately, it is a waste of time to force them to understand. The best way is just show an example. Yep, that's exactly it. And that's the one that's been challenging for me, is just to be the example, because the other part of me wants to just yell. The other part of me just wants to go out and do all kinds of other stuff. And I know that's an old part of me that is being resolved in a certain way. That's really kind of how I see that. So, wow, this is great. Okay, I had no idea it was this had gone this long, but this was so very cool. Anybody have anything to say? Any takeaways? Anything you want to add? Anything at all? I'm just so glad you guys are here.
People coming together.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to have you here. This is so perfect. These are going to all be so great. I'm still a little surprised, because this was surprising for me today. Terry.
I was just going to say,
oops, I'm sorry.
The way.
Okay, say that again. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, the way people are starting to come together in communities of like-minded people.
Yes.
It is really inspiring.
Yes.
And I guess we all care so much about the people around us.
Yes.
To help them see the light too. And I guess the like-minded communities is strength in numbers. So other people will see and see that there is different ways. And the main thing is to love and not to judge people.
Right. And yes, that's it. But what you're saying is exactly that, because the part that we get to remember is that that's the only thing that survives. That love. Yes. That's the only thing that survives, because that's the only thing that grows. And that's the concept but we have to, and when we come to understand that, even though we have all these differences and challenges and hatreds and all of that, but when we come to understand it, we go, okay, this is just part of this evolutionary process, and we chose to do it this way this time. And they chose something different. And all of them are purposeful, otherwise nothing changes. And that's the part I think is challenging for each of us, is to understand that concept. Yeah.
Let each person go on their own journey.
Yes. So
just be the light for those around you.
Right. But then the other part, this is the other part too. Okay. What they said was that when we are so invested in our journey, when we're willing to embrace that and we don't care so much about what they're doing. We're not worried because we're just owning what we're supposed to do. Oh, okay, that feels good. And we're too busy then too. We're too busy to worry about them because we have work to do. We have stuff that I don't know, whatever that might be. So yeah.
I guess
Anyway,
the other thing is actually action now. It's not the time to sit and do nothing anymore. It's the
Oh,
time to
perfect. Oh, I'm so glad you said that because there was so much information that came through before and it didn't all come out today. But then that was the other part of it. I'm so glad you said those words. It's like the actions that we take, that's one thing, but it's like we have to understand the energy that we're using. That's more important. The energy behind anything that we do is what causes things to change because everything is created through energy. If we're doing something to like take somebody down, that's an energy that does not cause anything to evolve or grow, you know? And so we have to, why am I doing, and this is something, okay, I'm not going to keep this going, but I got to tell you this one. I will sit and think about something. I'll see things going on and I'll say, oh, let me go online and put that out there and talk about it. And then I have to stop and think, what's your intention? What is your intention? And my intention to shame someone and thinking that's going to make them change? It's not going to do it. If my intention to, so then I will make a different choice. Okay, let me figure out a way to put something out that's coming from my understanding that I know is loving. If I can do that, then I'm accomplishing my goal instead of going and tell these people you're stupid, just change, do something different, you know? I have to look at that. So yeah. This is
yeah.
good.
I just want to say, I contacted a friend the other day, and this happens all the time. I'll contact someone and they'll say, I was just thinking of you.
That's what came through today. The synchronicities to say yes.
It happens all the time, but this particular friend, I then contacted her back again and said, all the people in the world, the energy that meant she thought of me and I thought of her and contacted her at the same time.
Right.
If we all harness that intention energy and connection energy, that is more powerful than anything we can imagine.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that's the whole thing. Now is this time for us to remember that is the strength that we each have within us. And it's challenging to always find that, but it's there. But, and again, that's why they said, it was so clear that when I'm supposed to do these, that it's going to be a process of us moving through this stuff, you know, which is what we're supposed to do. So it's going to be so worth it. Great. Thank you so much. This was wonderful, you guys. And I will hopefully see you next week. Okay. Take care.